Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to Vega Conflict. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go over the Catalyst prize list, but before I do that, I would like to talk about something else. This is actually a suggestion for Kixeye due to the difficulty of the event fleet and the mediocre payout compared to the top prize requirement, specifically for the lower levels. Anyone Axis tier or around Axis tier is the general purpose of this part of the video. And again, this is a suggestion for Kixeye, not actually for anybody else to even have to listen to, so if you want, you can just kind of jump over to this part. But what it is I've gotten several messages from varying people, and each one has had trouble trying to fight level 70 targets, which is the decent payout, well, the weak payout, compared to the damage isn't worth it. So far, everyone has messaged me they've been averaging between, from what I've calculated, 12 to 14 hours of repair time for stuff they can't even stop. They win the fight, but winning the fight, they don't actually win because they go back to the base, they have to start repairs, and that's no way to earn the Harvester. So I would like to advise that Kixeye, or suggest that Kixeye add Harvester, Ancient Harvester, and Co-op Harvester targets to the prize pool, possibly on the second to last day of the event, or possibly the last day of the event, for lower level players to be able to get a little bit of time in farming up resources and stuff like that, and have a chance to earn the Harvester in its debut event, where players have access to it. But other than that, the prize list is actually straightforward, but I did want to talk about the Harvester a bit, specifically about its stats. I have a few problems with it, and, well, I'm going to see what all of you think about it. But let's do a quick rundown of its stats. Repair time, 1 hour, 26 minutes, 55 seconds. Okay. Health, 10,430. Okay. Maximum mass, 88,080 tons. Cargo, 884,750 tons. And then it's essentially got carrier levels of movement speed, 200 meters per second, 6 degrees rotation per second, and 10 meters per second of strafe speed, but since it is effectively an elite ship right off the bat, it has 390 astronomical units per hour in sector. That is actually extremely good. Okay, we're going to skip the Surge Core because I'm going to talk about it in a minute. We're going to go range 125%, and the range does affect the squadrons that we can equip on it in the hangar, so it does increase their attack range. Armor health, 150%, damage per second, 150%, and both these are increases. Weapon and armor mass, both reduced by 50%. Increase of 25% to alien bonus damage, and resistance to 50% to alien damage, and 100% to alien nebula resistance. Okay. Let's talk about the Surge Core. This is... I've seen a few people play around with the ship already, and everyone said the same thing that I have thus far. It doesn't actually have time to charge up and activate the burst damage. And that is where it triggers the core, whereas it loses health, it begins to trigger and explode. Well, for some reason, it just doesn't have enough health, and when it comes under focus fire from anything and it loses its health way too quickly, it typically doesn't trigger any of the things, with the exception of one when it dies, because it doesn't have a full chance to fully charge up and then begin to pulse and do damage. Second, there was a poll actually, and it was requesting that the name be changed from Surge Core to Xeno Unstable Reactor, and I actually agree with that, because Surge Core, whenever I see this thing for Surge anything now, I think of beam weapons and them being enhanced and being allowed to fire for a longer period of time due to specials. So Surge Core, no. I would rather see it as the name recommended of the Xeno Unstable Reactor. As well as I would like to see that instead of them triggering at 75, 50, 25%, and 0 health 4 times, I would like to see the timer reduced, or have it so that the trigger time is half a second, so that it actually gets to trigger each one and actually do the area of effect damage as it's bleeding out, and not just explode and only trigger the last one. Because that was a little bit annoying to see happen. I haven't had it happen to mine yet, but seeing it happen was a bit painful. And now on to the part that I want to point out the most that irritates me. It is classed as an Axis ship, but it is missing plasma resistance. Okay. I would like to suggest, or see if anyone else agrees with me on this, and then try and suggest it to Kickside, that they add 40% plasma resistance to match all other elite upgraded ships of the Axis tier, because they all had up to 40% when they're maxed out. I would also like to suggest that Kickside actually remove the restriction since it's a dreadnought, or give it a unique thruster to increase its movement speed by 25% or 50%, as well as increase its rotation speed by 1 or 1.5 degrees. Now that may not seem like much, but when you're trying to turn it to get it to move, it will be just a little more responsive, or do a small increase of 25 or 50% that way too. Other than that, I haven't found any problems with it. I've enjoyed using the ship so far. I don't really know what the resistor slot was for, because I mean nobody's ever going to use them, especially on dreadnoughts, due to the weight of the ships. And unless they get unique resistors just to them that don't have any weight requirement, they're not going to be used. Second, for anyone who needs a jump ship, this is your chance of getting a jump ship, and a very decent one at that. Now, naturally everyone's going to try and compare it to the Behemoth or anything like that because it's a dreadnought. Well, don't do that, because the dreadnought is 2 factions ahead of this. However, this one has more long-range fire support than the dreadnought does fully mark upgrade. Dreadnought only has access to 2 hangar slots. Harvester has 4 by default, as you all saw in the beginning video clips. Also, again, I would like to bring up the thrusters, because the movement speed, if they don't change anything, what they could do is they could allow at least up to chase thrusters to be equipped to it and increase the movement speed by 90 and stuff like that, to increase the rotation speed and everything like that, just to help benefit the ship just a little bit more. Because it is slow, and I could actually see a group genetically modifying portions of the Harvester just to attach thrusters to it to increase it. And if they say that it can't be done, well, remember, duct tape can stick to everything. And I'm positive if we use enough duct tape, we'd probably be able to strap them to a Harvester. But that's going to be it for that. Now it's time to get on to the recommended prize list. Give me just a minute. Need to get my throat wet. I'm drying it out because I'm talking too much. Okay. The first recommended prize naturally is going to be the Harvester itself. It is a Dreadnought class ship. It can hit as hard as an entire fleet can with the top fitting that I have for it. For the Axis tier fleets, if you actually compare it to Altarian or anything like that, it's going to be lacking. But it has long-range fire support. It has exceptionally good, I can't say mobility. It's not terrible, because it could be worse. It could be Legion levels of movement speed. But it's not as good as something like the Behemoth, and adding or allowing chase thrusters or any other type to be equipped to it would benefit it. But the Harvester is the primary prize. Wraith, Ogre, and Medusa are the second, third, and fourth prizes that I would recommend everyone pick up. You're going to be using at least 2 Wraiths for most of the decoy fleets that I'm going to be recommending everyone attack in later on events, with at least 1 or 2 Medusa or Ogre battleships, and then 1 or 2, the opposite number, of the opposite ship. And that is for either long-range fire support to get the first hit in, or heavy fire support to help deal with large clusters of enemy units, or in this case, ships. As for everything else, the next thing that I could recommend anyone pick up, just to help you save the grind later on if you can, pick up each of the Behemoth Dreadnought Mark III patterns, just to make sure that you don't have to deal with the grind later on. Secondly, pick up at least 10 Mark II boxes to be able to mark upgrade at least 2 Wraiths. Again, 10 Mark II boxes and 10 Mark II boxes of the Ogre and the Medusa respectively, just to be able to mark upgrade at least 2 of them. For the lower levels, I would recommend doing the same thing of 10 boxes of whichever ship is currently your top tier. So, whether it be the Punisher, Guardian, or Bastion, you're going to want tanks, well naturally you're going to want to upgrade them as well. As for weapons, I would recommend picking up the level 1 and level 2 of each weapon class in the game that we can see here. So level 1, level 2 Havoc. However, if you do use the Havoc on on your cruisers, you're going to have to hug the enemy extremely closely to make the weapons extremely efficient because of the spread on the weapons. If you're going to use Atomic Driver, you're going to have to use what I'd recommend using on destroyers and do whatever you can to increase the speed of the projectile due to its low speed. But I would recommend using Nova cannons on your cruisers and things like that. And if you do a mixed build on your destroyers, which is what I've been using, it's been working extremely well in the Overseer 130s. I've been using a mix of Atomic Driver 1s, Nova Missile 1s, and Nova Missile 2 on my destroyers, and they're only Mark II right now, and they've survived just about every single fight. And that's backed up by the 2 cruisers acting as tanks and a single battleship acting as a high damage per second. Second, pick up level 1 and level 1 of the Thonian and Ablative Tungsten Armor respectively, then pick up level 2 of each one. Now, I'm not going to recommend picking up any of the reusable items because I don't know what went through their heads. Granted, they do want people to farm and spend money in the game, so it can be profitable for them. I can't agree that everything needs to be a reusable item that you have to grind for, because if you're a free player, you're going to look at the game, you're going to give it a negative review saying that it's too time consuming, which I completely agree with. So the reusable instances of these items, I'm going to say just skip them. They're not going to be on the recommended list. However, pick up level 1 and level 3 Sunder Thrusters, because so far everything I've done is either going to be fitted with level 1 for certain ship fittings that I'm going to have to pick up later, or level 3, which is what most of the ships I'm using are to help deal with the weight requirement. And most of the ships I have them set up in such a way that the damage per second is high enough that regardless of the negative benefits of the thrusters, they're fine. I would specifically recommend using Sunder Thrusters on battleships more than anything else though, just due to their high damage per second. Now, if you pick up the Harvester and you need a jump ship, pick up the Wormhole Drive Type E. You only need the one, but it'll make it so you have a viable jump ship, but it'll make the Harvester so it has an extremely long repair time, so be careful of that. As for everything else, don't pick up anything for the bases, because as I understand still right now, their XP value still has not been fixed, so it's still extremely high for the mediocre power that they actually wield. The same goes for the armor. They're effectively garbage against current tier and of their own tier due to the XP requirement of said item. And gold and silver prize boxes I can actually start recommending, because I was seeing that a few people were getting very, very lucky with the drops, and I can't say that you shouldn't try to get more ships, especially when you can get them for free. So the final prize after you've cleared out everything else, including the time tokens you may need, will be the gold and silver prize boxes on top of resources. So just make sure you clean out everything else you want before you start opening boxes and stuff like that. And finally is, again, time tokens, as I mentioned. And that's going to be it, everybody. I wanted to quickly bring up all that stuff. And again, I want to state again that Kixeye truly does consider adding Harvester targets for the Axis tier players to be able to fight for moderately reasonable intel payouts and reasonable repair times, not 100,000 intel for the entire fleet's dead. Again, I declare that unacceptable, because they would have to hit 150 of those just to be able to unlock the ship, and if you count time and stuff like that, it's just unacceptable. They should be able to farm it and earn it over the course of the 4 days, but not have to spend all 24 hours each day playing the game, farming low-level targets that are so ill-balanced that it gives them a headache or a heart-related issue or anything like that. But truly, consider adding harvesters, just consider adding Axis tier targets in general for the lower level players before the end of the event, so that they can actually have a chance of earning the harvester, which is of their tier, not my tier, Umbra, to their list of ships that they have, especially their first dreadnought. But that's going to be it, everybody. What do all of you think? Do you think that we should push the suggestion through over on the forum and in Discord to see if we can get their attention, because they are needed, and I was watching other lower levels struggle to do the 70s, and I was watching people hit hundreds of the 40s through the 60s, and that I used to do that, and I spent way too much time in the game doing that, and I can't agree with spending more than 3 hours a day, regardless of what you're doing for the rest of the day, in the game, especially if you're not making any progress. So, truly, what do all of you think of that? Do you think it should be done? Do you think they should at least consider adding varied targets to each event to help represent the potential prizes in the events reflective of the targets? So in this case, we have a mixture of stuff from Axis tier and up, but we don't have Axis targets. We have Umbra targets, and Umbra targets are, as we all know, they're focused on top tier players due to their improper balancing, is what I'm going to call it for now. On top of that, as you guys saw at the beginning of the video, the Harvester I have is, I just quickly fitted it to make sure that I could have a video out of it. But in turn, mine's going to take over around 20 days to fully fit. Well, 15 now. But that's going to be it once again, as I said. Be safe out there in the void, everybody. Don't stress yourselves trying to unlock the ship. I do hope that Kixeye will continually add it to event prizes and stuff like that in the future, so if anyone doesn't have a chance to get it now, they can at least consider what I've mentioned about adding variable targets for the lower levels of Axis tier, possibly Xeno as well, just to allow them to have targets that aren't going to be 2 tiers, well, a tier and a half, or 2 factions above their own, using damage types that they have no resistance to, because that just, I know you guys want money, but at least think and consider the players that are being left behind. And again, the prize this time around is the Harvester, and it's 2 tiers below, so I don't really understand why Umbra targets were the primary focus this time around, other than it being the general theme and where the story is going. But everybody go ahead and leave your thoughts on anything that I've said thus far, and if you have any suggestions for targets for anything I may not have mentioned that could be difficult for everyone but could be high yield payout for everyone, feel free to say so below as well. Let's see what we can do, and then take it over to the forum, Discord, and see what Kixeye's development team thinks. Hopefully they don't think that it's a joke or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, everybody. If you liked the video, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, everybody, be safe out there in the void, and I'll see you later.